Hi all, we're going to read chapter 17, it's hard to see, sorry, by All That's Holy. There's a back alley between the tenement buildings, you can't see it from the road, and Iggy takes us along the alley to this other place. You can tell how the door has been busted in and the lock broke, and we go into the dark hallway. The light comes on and the first thing I notice is the perfume an old lady wears and the smell of cats. It ain't much, but the old bat who lives here took the greyhound to visit her sister for the holiday, Iggy says. He's trying to smile. The little room is warm and close feeling, and the furniture is really old and saggy. There's a big old TV with a doily on the top and an empty goldfish bowl, not a golden bowl, goldfish bowl, and piles of newspaper tied up neat with a string, and a Bible on a little table by the TV. And there's this trick picture of Jesus on the wall where his eyes keep following you, and you go cross-eyed looking at it. Ain't much worth stealing, Iggy says. My father's looking around, making sure the curtains are closed. You'd think I'd steal from an old woman, he says. And Iggy shakes his head. I sure don't. Never you mind, my father says. This will do in a pinch until we get started. I better get back to Loretta, said Iggy. You do that. My father watches the door shut behind Iggy and he doesn't say anything. I'm just standing there in the middle of the room because I don't know what he wants me to do. Make yourself comfy, boy, he finally says. I'm going to check out. We have a way back out. I'm looking at the door we come in by, just looking, when all of a sudden he's there behind me. I feel the cool air of him at the back of my neck. You wouldn't run out on me now, would you? No, sir, I wouldn't. Sit down, he says. We need to talk, man to man. I sit down in the old lady chair that's so soft I almost sink through to the floor, and I'm wondering what happened to the cats. Maybe she took them with her to visit her sister, or maybe Iggy let them out and they can't get back in. He leans over and puts his big hands on my arm, and he says, Now, your grandparents say that you're nothing but a dysfunctional dummy, but no kid of mine is stupid, and that's a fact. So the first thing you got to do is start acting smart. Use your head. You got a situation going here, boy, so the way to handle it is to do exactly what I say, no matter what. Is that understood? Yes, sir. His hands shove through my hair, and I can just feel how strong he is, even though he doesn't hurt me. That's good. That's real good. He goes into another room, and I could hear a door banging and stuff being moved around. And when he comes back, he's got this rope in his hand. A boy who doesn't know his own father might be dumb enough to run away, he says. We can't have that now, can we? No, sir. No, sir, what? No, sir, we can't have that. What he does is tie up my feet and hands, and then he loops the end of the rope around his waist. I'm taking sack time while I can, he says. You're as smart as I think you are, or you'll get some shut-eye, too. He turns out the light and lies down on the floor beside the chair with just his arm for a pillow, and for a long time, I can't tell whether he's asleep or pretending. Then I decide it doesn't matter. If I move, the rope will surely wake him up. It seems like we're frozen inside that room, even though the air is warm and stuffy. The soft chair keeps a hold of me. I'm not strong enough to get up, and my feet and hands are getting tingly where they're tied, and pretty soon I can't even keep my eyes open. I'm half asleep dreaming a cat is in the other room mewing for milk, and I'm still thinking about the cat when something tugs me. He's sitting there in the dark, so I can't see his face. He says, Wake up, sleepyhead. I better tell my own son a thing or two he needs to know about his own father. First thing, like I already said, I never killed anybody. I'm big like you're big, so if folks assume things they shouldn't, you understand what I'm saying? Yes, sir, I do. Good. Now the other thing is the geezers that you've been living with all these years. I bet they never gave you all the presents I sent you, did they? No, sir, they didn't. He shakes his head real sorrowful. That's a crime, not giving a boy presents from his father. I suppose you didn't get my letters I sent. No. If they didn't give you the presents, they likely didn't give you the letters either. Another crime against humanity. That's what that is. They hated me from the first sight on account of my appearance because I wasn't good enough for their precious daughter. As a man should be blamed for how fearsome or cruel he looks, when in fact he's truly a loving person inside, which I am. I can hardly see a sad movie without crying, and I'm not afraid to say so. There's just enough streetlight coming through the curtain so I can make out part of his face where he turns, and you can see where there's a wet spot on his cheek, and he brushes it away. I've been locked up like an animal, he says. Every single night I cried myself to sleep, and that's a fact. Killer Cain, that's just an unkind nickname they hung on me. You would know how kids can be mean at school, mean as animals. It's like that also, but only they weren't kids. They were adults who should have known better, except they were so ignorant and hateful they believed the worst. His voice is sort of ragged, but you can't help but listen to him. You follow the words up and down like you're riding through mountains. You can't see the other side. All you can see is the road just ahead. A great injustice was done to me, boy, he said. What those people did, they stole my life. They took years away from me. Might as well have cut out my heart with a knife. That's how it was to lie awake each night and think about the injustice that was done to me. They blame me for all the wrongs in the world, those people, by which I mean the geezers, her folks, that they always hated me, and of course the police who failed to see the truth of the situation. He stopped to rub away another stream of tears. There's no crying in his voice. You can't hear it, but sure enough, there's tears all over his face, slick and shiny in the pale, pale light. I woke up just now worrying that you might wonder why I never did mention her, your mother. You might still be thinking the wrong way on that and believe that what they told you happened. How could you know the truth of it? He gets up then and goes over by the TV set, far enough away so the rope is tugging me. Then he gets back and he gets a book in his hand. You know what this is, boy? The Bible, I say. You could tell in the dark, can you? That's fine. What am I supposed to... I'm going to do is I'm going to put my right hand here down on the Bible, you see? Yes, sir, I see. I'm going to put my other hand up over my heart. Can you see that? Yes, sir, I can. That's a good boy. Now listen up. I, Kenneth Kane, do swear by all that's holy that I did not murder this boy's mother. And if that isn't the truth, may God strike me dead. I'm waiting to see if something happens, and nothing does. The room is the same. It smells of old lady perfume and missing cats, and my hands and my feet are still tied up by a rope to the waist. Satisfied, he says. I want to answer him, but my throat closes up and my tongue is so dry I can hardly open my mouth. I keep thinking about how heavy his hand was on that Bible. I asked you a question, boy. Yes, sir, I said. I'm satisfied. He lays back down after that, and pretty soon he's breathing heavy again. I can't sleep, though. I just sit there like a lump until the sun comes up, trying not to think about things I don't want to remember. Chapter 18. I'm waiting for something to happen. The whole world except me is asleep, and the only sound is him breathing heavily. I'm trying to see through the curtains out the old lady's window when it finally gets light, but the snow is stuck to the glass and everything is fuzzy, which is pretty much how I feel. Looking down at him on the floor, how he overflows the rug, I think about that story where a giant falls asleep and he's tied up by little people. Not that I do anything. I'm just a blob in the chair with numb hands and numb feet. Finally, what happens, there's a noise from the back, and there's these little skittering footsteps, and then my father comes awake so fast he almost yanks me from the chair. He's on his feet, and has this wild look in his eyes, and Loretta Lee glides into the room. "Merry Christmas, boy," she says, and she's got this pizza box in her hand, holding it out like a present. "Where's Iggy?" my father says. "Waiting for Santa Claus," Loretta says. "Ain't nothing open this morning, but we got this left over. You're welcome to it." "Best put that down," he says, and he pulls on the rope and lifts me up. He gives her this cold look. "You go and you get Iggy," he says. Loretta Lee is wearing this long winter coat. It looks clean and brand new, so she probably got it for Christmas, but her legs are skinny and bare, where her feet go into these old rubber boots. She's smoking the cigarette and squinting through the smoke at my father like she's trying to figure out what he's thinking. "Why can't you be nice, Kenny?" she says. "We had some good times in the old days, remember?" "The old days are over," he said. "That's the best you can do for us. Leftover pizza?" "Hey, pizza's good for you," she says. "It has vitamins and stuff." "I still want to see Iggy." Loretta takes a drag on her cigarette, and she's got this crooked smile. Her eyes keep flicking at me and the way I'm roped up, but mostly she's looking at him. "Ig will be up soon," she says. "He had himself a tough night." "I have business with him, Loretta. Important business." "I'm sure you do," she says, and she turns to her boots and leaves behind the back. The pizza box is sitting on the table, but my father says we can't eat anything touched by her dirty hands. So he walks me out into the dark little kitchen. He unties me, and we go through the cupboards and find mostly boxes of prunes and old cereal. There's nothing in the refrigerator that hasn't already gone bad, so I eat a bowl of cornflakes with water. I'm so hungry, it almost tastes good. "This is what they call a temporary situation," he says. "I know a way we can live like kings if you play our cards right." He stops for a while and squints at me like he wants to see inside my head. "We'll be heading for warmer weather. That agreeable with you, boy?" "Yes, sir, it is." He seems real thoughtful. "I had a lot of time to plan this out, a lot of time to study people and figure out what makes them tick. First thing, we'd get a bus, one of those RV things, a really big one, because it's important to look impressive. Put a name on the side, the Reverend Kenneth David Kane. Or it might be we'll go on another name, just to be on the safe side. Did you guess I was a man of God, boy? Could you tell by the look at me, sir?" "Yes, sir," I say. "No, sir. Which is it, boy?" "I don't know, sir." He reaches out and tussles my head. "You'll learn. You'll be standing out in front of the bus in a real nice suit. What you do is you collect money in a basket. You won't have to steal it because folks will give to a man of God. And what they love to hear is of how a bad man who's redeemed himself. I learned how to preach while in the slammer. I learned how to preach the word of God to a lot of illiterate convicts, but they're no more ignorant than a lot of other folks. No, sir. We're going to do just fine." After I finish the cornflakes, he ties me up again. This is just a precaution, he says. Can't take any chances till you see the light. You want to see the light? Yes, sir, I do. He's grinning at me and he taps himself on the chest and says, You're looking at it, boy. I am the light, and don't you forget it. He turns on the TV. It hardly comes in at all. The screen is so fuzzy, and he keeps switching channels, and he's making all this noise about how the old lady has such a crummy TV. All that's on is Christmas stuff and cartoons. What he wants is the news to see if we're on it. I bet they haven't even missed you, he says. Kept you down the cellar like an animal. How would they know? We're sitting there waiting for Iggy when the blue light starts flashing bright against the curtains. He quick grabs me by the neck and shoves me down to the floor. We both lie there. The blue light goes by real slow. You can see them shining in all the rooms. Might be somebody else they're looking for, he says. A place like this could be anybody. Still, can't be too careful. When the light stops flashing, he crawls to the window and looks out. There's nothing dumber than a dumb cop, he says. They were so smart, they wouldn't be working on Christmas Day, would they? No, sir, I say. You hush up, boy, and let me think. I'm lying there on the floor, tied up when Iggy sneaks in through the back. I know it's him by the draggy way he walks and the heavy boots. Kenny, he whispers. You there? Of course, I'm here. Show yourself. Iggy comes into the room and his eyes are darting around. At first, he's surprised to see me tussed up, and then he shrugs and doesn't look at me anymore. Close call. Did you see the cop car? I saw it. They came right to my door looking for the boy, he says. I said you came back with a search warrant. You want to see what I keep under my bed. But I'll let them have a good look from the door, satisfy them that you weren't here. They believe you? Who knows with cops, said Iggy. Then my father started drooping his arms around Iggy and giving him a squeeze, and you could see the cold, scared look in Iggy's little eyes and the wet mouth of his inside his beard. You turn on me, did you? My father said. That how come they know to come to your place of all the places in this town? Iggy laughed real nervous. It was that crippled kid, he said. They had him out in the car. It must have been him. Loretta saw him peeking out over the seat. Freak. What crippled kid? My father says. You think I'd fall for that? Iggy points to me and says, ask him, does he have a little crippled midget friend? The two of them stole Loretta's purse, and how come they know the plate? That's the God's honest truth, Kenny. My father kneels down and looks at me close. My father doesn't show anything. Well, what's your story? We didn't steal her purse, I said. We brought it back to her. Oh, my father says, now that's an interesting story. I like that story. Iggy's talking fast, like he can't wait to get rid of the words and leave. The crippled up kid belongs to Gwen. Remember Gwen? Her and your wife were pals. That's what Loretta says. My father puts his hand on Iggy and he shoves him down into the old lady's chair. Never mind about her. It doesn't matter how the cops got on you. All that matters is they did. And now, what are we going to do about it? Iggy is scratching at his beard and he starts to say something. My father says, quiet and let me think. Iggy quiets up. Every now and then he sneaks a look at me like he's trying to tell me something with his eyes, but I can't figure out what. And after a while, my father says, first thing, get me a firearm. Something small but functional. Next thing is transportation. I don't care what it is as long as it runs. Can you do that for me? Iggy says he can, no problem. Then do it, my father says. The quicker the better. Iggy leaves, walking backwards out of the room, and my father lifts me up by the rope and says, I know you have more sense than to waste your time stealing pocketbooks with crippled kids. You can't trust a cripple. But I guess you know that now, don't you? He shakes the rope. Yes, sir, I do. Okay, tomorrow, chapter 19.